Good day, folks. This is Greg Judy at Green Pastures Farm. Today, my special guest is Zeke Zacharias. Did I pronounce that right, Zeke?
Yes.
Okay. We're at our grazing school today. You can see we've got the tent set up there. This is the advanced school, and this is our final day. And we've had really good weather. It's been warm, but we've powered through it, and we didn't get a storm like we thought we were going to get yesterday, so it's all good. And anyway, I wanted to ask Zeke to tell us a little bit about your background and your operation. You're from where?
I live in Adair, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And my wife and I, we have like a 100-acre farm up there. And we've got some beef cattle and then some goats. And then I train horses, or had trained horses professionally, and and still shoe horses. So that's my main living. So.
That's a pretty tough life. I mean, that's a hard life. I know you're still walking straight.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't have a hump in your back.
Well, I think the variety helps give me a little bit of little break in between.
Okay. So. What's the worst you've ever been hit by a horse or hurt?
Well, I don't want to jinx it, but the Lord's protected me pretty good, so I haven't been hurt too bad so far. So.
Good. Well, I know some people really get hammered by some of these horses, and
True.
I respect you for being able to do that. And what got you into the beef cattle and that part of the grass farming?
Well, basically, so the beef farming, what got me into it was when I acquired the farm, I wanted to have a way to bring in a little bit of income. I knew I wouldn't be able to make a living off of it at this point, but the way I look at it is I get to live out in the country, be on the farm, and my cows are my renters.
Oh, there you go.
So
there you go. And you were telling me earlier you switched bulls. You kind of accidentally happened on to. Tell me that bull story. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, so I had by watching your videos, watching Greg's videos, I'd learned a little bit about the South Poll cattle, and so I became interested in that. But obviously, it wasn't easy to get stock, so I was just kind of waiting. And the cattle that I had, I was selecting the cattle that I had, the commercial cattle that I had, for the type of, I was looking for cattle that would do good on grass. So if one wouldn't do well, I would cut her off and keep the ones that were doing better. But I didn't have any South Poll cattle, and I wasn't sure how I was going to get any. So one day I was just on Facebook, and I was on the South Poll, one of the South Poll groups. Yep. And a gentleman up in Minnesota had posted that he had a South Poll bull that came off the Greg Judy ranch. And of course there were some people on there like, well, is he registered or what? And they kind of was not sure what to think. And I would instantly just message him and just said, hey, I'm interested in your bull. So he called me back, and of course he was he didn't want to get rid of this bull, but he was wanting to get rid of him only because he had kept him for a few years. This bull was about 5 years old, and he felt like he wanted to bring in some new genetics. Yep. So we worked up a deal to get this bull, and he was actually coming down to Missouri to pick up another bull from Greg. And so he said, yeah, he says, I could bring him down and meet you kind of part way down, and we could do that. So that's what he did. So he brought this bull, and I mean, he was one of the prettiest bulls I had ever, seen. And of course, I even had people that didn't know anything about South Poll. They would see that bull, and I'd show them my bull picture, and they'd, man, that's a fancy bull. I don't care what breed he is. He's one I'd want on my farm. So that's how I got him, and I've been pretty happy. So at this point, my cows are all bred to him, but I don't have. I mean, I'm waiting for calves at this point. So. And you were talking earlier. When you go to move the bull, the docility, you've never been around a bull like that. Yes, yeah, that was really cool. Whenever, if I want to move him from one point to the other, I just pretty much, he drives real easy. Like I can, step to his right a little bit, he'll slowly just move left. If I step to his left, he'll slowly move right. And, I've had cattle before that they didn't know how to drive or draw. But he does both pretty easy, and does he stay in pretty good condition? Yes. Yeah. Well, pretty much. Yeah. Just the hay and the grass and stuff. Yeah. I of course keep good mineral out for him. Yep. But yeah, he does maintain body condition pretty well. And that was another thing too. That was even the guy I bought him from. He told me, he says, this is grass conditioned, and he really looked good. So that was coming from Minnesota. That was coming from Minnesota. Yes. So you were a little bit skeptical if he'd have been born in Minnesota, but the fact that he came from our farm, went to Minnesota, then came back. Correct. To Oklahoma. Correct. You were pretty good with that. Yes. Yeah, and that was one of the things, because typically we don't I've never had good luck with bringing cattle north to south. Yep. They seem to do better the other way. Yep. So if it would have been born and raised in Minnesota, being in Oklahoma, I probably wouldn't have been interested necessarily, but because he had grown up basically about 4 hours north of where I lived, I felt like that was far enough south I could probably adapt okay.
So you were telling me earlier, Zeke, that your cows are a little bit on the big side, and so with this smaller frame bull, you're going to be bringing your cow size down.
Correct. So I'd already been bringing my cow size down some, but compared to the South Poll, they're probably, I mean, my cows average between the bigger ones about 1,200, the smaller ones about 1,000. And this bull, I mean, it's probably, I haven't weighed him, so it's probably would be, I'd hate to take it on, basically take a guess at his weight. He's not as big as some bulls, but he is very muscled and looks good.
Yep.
But like when he's standing, he's pretty much the same height as my cattle.
Yeah.
So I would say, you know, he's going to breed them down a little bit.
What got you interested in getting your cow size down? Why don't you want a great big old cow and a big old calf?
Well, honestly, by watching some of your videos and learning more about it, basically, and I've talked to other guys too that have confirmed and added to it. But basically, for one, obviously, it does less damage, you know, to your ground, or helps with the mud and all that kind of stuff. But it seems like they're more efficient. A lot of times, even when I had bigger cows, they're the first ones to have foot problems, the first ones to, it just takes more energy to maintain their weight.
Yes.
So they can raise, and I even had years past where I had 1,400-pound calves that were raising the same size calves at weaning weight as my smaller cows. So in my,
but it was a bigger animal you had to feed.
So they got cut. Maybe so that I called them just because I'm feeding a cow that's 200-300 pounds heavier and really not any more productive.
Yeah. So. Well, what have you thought so far of the school? You've encountered a couple of days of it. What do you think about it so far?
Well, so this was the, there's a lot to take in. Of course, this is the advanced school.
Yep.
One of the reasons why I selected this was because of the fact that we had been grazing for a while.
Right.
And watching the videos, even though this is my first time to come down to Greg's, but the ideas we've been studying and practicing for a little bit. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I've learned just in the last couple of days that made me go, oh, I probably need to change that. But learning a lot. I mean, Kendall even made a comment one time where he said, well, you learn where you're at. And that's very true. Like in my profession, when we did clinics with horse training and stuff, that's how it was. A lot of times we would show people the same information over and over again. And they thought it was a new clinic every time they came.
Yeah.
And so I kind of feel like that's probably, I have intentions of coming back, to the same thing, and you'll probably present some of the same stuff, but I feel like I'll, as I go home and practice stuff, I'll be able to be hopefully at another spot next year.
There's a lot of people out here that are just like you, Zeke. They're starting out, they've got some experience, and they just want to kind of fine tune and learn any new tips that might make sense on their farm.
Right. And the way I look at education like this even is this is relatively very cheap education compared to going, well, any education costs some money, but if the way I look at it is if I learned one or two things that improve my my craft or whatever, it's well worth it.
Yeah.
So.
And the networking that takes place at these schools, you meet a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And that's something that we encourage is in between breaks. And we had a banquet last night. Heck, there's people stayed here till almost 9 o'clock last night.
Yes.
And asking questions and visiting and just making those contacts are extremely valuable for you in your future.
It's funny you mentioned that because that was one of the things that I talked to my wife about once last night. I said, the people I meet down here, that's half the other side of the bonus of this whole thing, because my wife was teasing me. She's like, you're probably in heaven because you've got a whole group of people who are excited to talk about your lives, what you're doing, and because normally I'm going around and talking people's ears off about stuff that I'm not even sure they're interested in. And this way, you start up a conversation and everybody's just excited to talk about what we're doing here with with just regenerative farming and stuff. And because it is kind of a thing where there are people who are excited about it, but then there's some people who kind of just like to make fun of you about it, and so you kind of have to get over that a little bit.
Well, Zeke, I tell you what, I really believe we're on the right side of this. If you look at the price of everything around us, it's going up, the input cost, and here we are, teaching that you don't need all these costs and all these inputs. It kind of puts us in the driver's seat.
Yes.
And it's a good feeling for young people like you to come here. I love seeing young people and I don't know, how old are you, Zeke?
I'm actually going to be 35 this month.
35. So. You're a young whippersnapper right now. You're in the prime of your life right now.
Yes, sir.
You really are. So, well, Zeke, I sure appreciate the time you took with me this morning, and the best of luck to you in your grazing future. And everybody on the way out, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zeke.
Yes.